Hey Story Seekers, welcome to Seeking Stories. My name is Ryan and today we're going to be delving into Chapter 1 of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Now this is a video in a series of videos that I'm doing that's covering every chapter in The Fellowship of the Ring. This is not a true deep dive in the sense that we're not going to be analyzing every single tidbit over the course of an hour. This is really supposed to be a 5 to 10 minute video where our purpose is to break down just a few kind of key and maybe interesting elements in the chapter at hand to hopefully give you a little bit more appreciation for the story or to help you think about certain thoughts about the story. So let's delve right into it. Now, of course, in this chapter, we open up into what we call, again, the long expected party. Bilbo Baggins is celebrating his 111th birthday, 11 years, his far too short of time to spend amongst such excellent and admirable hobbits, as those of you who love the book and the movie know that line probably far too well. But this is really setup. This is really Tolkien setting up the story, but even more so the world and really what's at stake. We see the Shire, this really idealistic landscape, and we get this idea that this is a peaceful place. Even though some hobbits are kind of dumb, let's be honest, this is really a gorgeous setting and a place where a lot of us, I think, would want to call home. Even if maybe, you know, the countryside isn't your cup of tea, just that peace there. We're really setting the stakes for why, you know, Frodo, again, I'm not going to spoil too many things if you haven't read the story already, but why Frodo goes on his journey with this ring. We want to establish a sense for why does a certain group of hobbits take it upon themselves to really go against almost their nature to set off on an epic quest that has many dark and dangerous endeavors. It's really because they want to save this particular place. That's their home. Tolkien wants to show the audience why their home is special. And secondly to that, Tolkien is really starting to set up some of the foreshadowing. He does it in the backdrop of his party. It's not just an exposition dump. A lot of people say Lord of the Rings has some exposition dumps, and we will start talking about that even as close as the next chapter. But in this particular chapter, we really don't get too many exposition-y things. We do get Bilbo and Gandalf at the end of the chapter talking about the ring and the importance of the ring. And we do get some foreshadowing there on the importance of what this ring is to the plot and many of the characters. For example, Bilbo says, "It has been growing on my mind lately. Suddenly, I have felt like it was like an eye looking at me. And I am always wanting to disappear, don't you know? Or wondering if it is safe and pulling it out to make sure." And of course, in The Hobbit, we have this ring that is, you know, seemingly innocuous. It's nothing special outside the fact that it grants its user the power of invisibility, which I would vote is very useful, especially for someone like Bilbo Baggins on a quest to reclaim a homeland and defeat a dragon. But there doesn't really seem to be anything ominous about it. But here we start to realize that there's something a little bit more ominous about this ring than we had learned in The Hobbit. And this is really Tolkien through Bilbo showing that something is up. And that's where the cool thing that Tolkien does throughout, at least the first part of the story, is that he doesn't really come out and say, oh, this ring is evil. Yeah, that comes up, you know, in the dialogue, but we slowly get these hints from the characters, Bilbo in specific, that something is up, something is affecting him, and this ring might not be exactly what it seems. So there's a lot of mystery and foreshadowing that goes into what Tolkien does through writing the story this way, through the eyes of Bilbo Baggins. And then, of course, we have the plot elements. Bilbo says this, "After all, that's what this party business was all about, really. To give away lots of birthday presents and somehow make it easier to give it away at the same time." It meaning the ring, of course, again. And this one thing that the movie really didn't do, and looking back, I wish that they had. Now, this video series is not about the movie, but we have this grand party that Bilbo gives to basically the entire Shire. And as we learn in this chapter, the cultural tradition of hobbits on birthdays is to give away presents. And so Bilbo really sets up this circumstance, a scenario where he's giving away so many presents. You know, presents to his friends, to his family, the family that he doesn't like, the young hobbits, like special, like possibly magical dwarf toys. He's giving away so much. He's even giving away his home and basically most of his fortune. He's really setting his mind in a place where then he can give the ring away. Because I think subconsciously Bilbo knows that he could never give the ring away by himself, but he knows that he kind of has to. I don't think he could put a finger on why exactly, but he knows if he gets himself into this scenario where he can just give away so many things and leave his home, leave his town, and just go on one last adventure, it'll be easy for him at the same time to get rid of this ring and to pass it along to his heir, who is Frodo, of course. And of course, as we learn in this chapter, it takes a little bit or a lot of convincing from Gandalf to kind of maybe not make Bilbo, because Bilbo can't really be made to do it, but convince Bilbo that this is the right thing to do in the end. And that's what he does, as we learn in this chapter. But it's also, again, tying the plot together with the foreshadowing elements of the ring that something isn't quite up. Bilbo had to go through this whole elaborate scenario of his birthday party and give away lots of gifts and everything he had pretty much just so we can give away this ring. And that's again Tolkien foreshadowing and giving the power of this ring, instead of just saying, oh, this Dark Lord has this ring, blah, 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 we're gonna fight. Like, I mean, we get that later on, that the ring was used for awful things, but showing it from the perspective of really as innocent as a character as you can kind of get. I mean, he's not innocent from like a worldly wise perspective. He knows what's going on in the world, but you know, hobbits as a culture are more of an innocent culture. So seeing how it affects them and what a character like Bilbo has to do to go through getting rid of this ring really sets up the power of the ring, and I think in a really incredible way. And the last thing I want to talk about in this video is the poem that Bilbo sings as he's leaving his home. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can. It's such a famous song in The Lord of the Rings, and it's interesting because if you read the book, the road, the R of the road is capitalized. And I want to know your thoughts. You know, I think there's some obvious answers to this question potentially, but what does the road imply here? What do you think? The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can. The poem keeps going on from there, and it's interesting because a few chapters later, Frodo sings almost identically the same song, but with a little twist to it. And we'll touch on that when we get to that chapter, but I want to hear your thoughts below. Let's talk about the road. Let's talk about kind of the obvious things, maybe the not so obvious things about it, because it's a really great transition into the next part of the story where we really see how The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings kind of reflect each other, but also start deviating away from each other as far as how the plot works. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are, and I will see you in the next video, which I will link here, I think, when we talk about Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past.